Her Bak, Chapter 5. A north wind filled the sail and helped the oarsmen, attacking the resistant stream and covering it with foaming crests. The falling river left thick, limy beds that were cracking already in the sun and bristling with green stems. Slowly, on either bank, scene after scene opened to the voyagers, cultivated land checkered with thousands of trenches framed in desert horizons. Groups of palm trees protecting brown earth huts in their shade, restful, dark stains in the pitiless light. Strange land of Egypt, never watered by rain, black earth that drinks the waters of Nile, which must be drawn ceaselessly when the river goes back to its source. Naked men toil night and day at the shadoofs spaced along the banks, pulling the beam, dipping the cistern which counterweights lifts to the trench level. Their sad song and the grating of the shadoofs give rhythm to labour that fertilises the banks. Man doesn't complain. Ra's power and Nile's riches increase the fruits of his endeavour. Slowly the boat glides south, letting the stream pass by as days pass, the centuries and millennia before unmindful earth. The master recited the names of temple and village like one telling beads in a necklace. Fortunate disciples of the wisest country in the world, where the precisest of symbolisms leads even the least eager to perception of universal truth and offers them understanding of natural law in themselves. Open your eyes, Her Bak, to the colours of the plover, the swoopings of the falcon, the habits of the vultures. Open your ears to the names of our gnomes and cities. Breast happy's stream to the source of sources. Islets will get in your way. Study the lesson of those chaotic rocks. Go and read the signatures of the pilgrims who added to the symbolism of the place the symbol of their names. Go and seek in the stone of elephantine. Grey as the elephant's skin, the secret of Khnum, divine potter, who moulds earth and brings all things into existence. Contemplate the stony chaos of the Isle of Senemut. Bigar, Senemut, of the meagre body, siren brutal as lioness, aquatic and solar Sekhmet, the two-sexed rock of Kenset that marks the southern limit of the territory of Kemet, the holy mountains of Sethet, Shell, and the red granite of Sunu as one. These will tell you of the beginnings of the world, as they told the students and sages who wrote their proof of their understanding on the rock. Follow the tracks of travellers who marked the roads to Rohenu, Wadi Hamamat with steels. Go upstream to the marsh country where grow the rushes of the south. Everywhere you will see temples, statues, stills, erected at the right moment in a style suitable to the heavy and original black earth. But we must return. The decades roll by. The caves of the south recall happy. Soon there will be danger that sandbanks will wreck the boat. We must return, Her Bak. Within the temple walls you must meditate the enigmas you have glimpsed. The names and symbols of places will only yield their secrets when your heart reflects on them. The flagstones of the school are hard, the gods' faces severe. The discipline is pitiless, but your master awaits you. It was a year of fruitful studies. Her Bak had the joy of breaking the seal of a new door that gave access to a more inward teaching. Once more Nile poured forth his abundance. Once more the flood retreated. The whirlpools vanished, the banks reappeared. Sailors got the boat under way. They embarked for a voyage that would take them on smooth, swift stream to the great temples of the north. The disciples, languid in the heat, somnolent, abandoned themselves to the boat's rhythm. "What are you at, lazy ones? Are you not the conqueror's escort? Her Bak, do you not see Sobek?" says Crocodile, hidden in the mud. There is no crocodile. "Your eyes are too realist, Her Bak. Was it not here that Horus conquered Ra's enemies? Look at the grey back." Isn't that simply an eyelet? It's Seth's hippopotamus. He lies under water, but his head breaks surface. Head? No, 3 points, 2 eyes, and a nose that comes up for a breath of air. Horus will master him. Watch the secret land. Shetu the tortoise, whom the divine lance will pin to the river bottom. Her Bak went on with this fancy, and the voyage became an evocation of myth known only to initiates. Horus manoeuvred before his eyes, fighting, changing shape. One saw how the names of regions and cities arose. Through half-closed lids, he watched the falcon's proud face, changed into a winged disc. It hovered on the prow with the cobra's Nekbet and Uadjit. Amazed to see how Isis's son changes himself into Horus Behedity, he resolved to go into the meaning of such mysteries. Have patience, disciple. Learn to see and understand before trying to fathom the reality of the netters. As they approached, Abydos's funeral barges became more and more numerous. The boat sailed on. They were to visit the sanctuary of Osiris on their way south. The country had changed. The banks were flat, the palm groves far apart. There were great stretches of cultivated land, and now a cry of joy burst from every mouth. For pyramids rose on the horizon. Many marvels awaited them. The temple of Hatkaptah at Memphis, the schools of Iunu at Heliopolis, cities of the dead and funerary temples, those gigantic triangular masses that defy man's inconsistency and witness to the greatness of the old masters and the perpetuity of their declarations. There is an image I will send you, which is Seth's hippopotamus. Horus will become its master. Unfailing witness of the pyramids that cannot err. The word is a definition. A pyramid is the magnet that brings heaven and earth together. Its ramp is the way to revelation, ramp that joins the black earth of the valley with the red sand of the desert, that symbolises ascent of life from earthworm to that royal man who governs all the phases of nature and writes history in the most abstract of symbolisms. Power of Pharaoh, greatest of houses, power of conscious nobility and religious majesty, it pleases him to contemplate the long succession of monuments that will establish the teaching for posterity. All-powerful and silent during his life, he watches over the legacy of knowledge that will speak for him after his death. Pyramid, cosmic, monument, tomb, you will speak not of the personal life of your builder, but of the immense experience of his patriarchate on earth through a long line of tradition. You will tell of man's ascent, of which Pharaoh's reign marks a stage. It is thus that Pharaoh, who, as he waxes, becomes son of Ra, pays tribute in secret to himself. stones, whether drawn, carved, or constructed, always mean something. They are characters of a universal script that everyone reads without knowing it. The pyramid images a descent. It may enshrine a corpse, but it is also in image and in truth the descent and cradle of spirit. Grouped round the master, the disciples stored up each word as if it were the echoes of ancient voices. Quote, "At the beginning of our time, there was high simplicity, the teaching of number through forms, to which the student must in the end return, when he has learned how to find his way to the fundamental things through the complexity of our myths. The pyramid is a cosmic truth. The base is square, its four sides triangular. In principle, these four trinities form the quadrangular foundation of a primitive five-pointed shape. This constitutes the pyramid's mystical statement, since all the elements of number are present in their abstract aspect. The fact that this shape is constructed in certain proportions imposes geometrical relations, which of themselves determine the principles of measurement as regards length and volume. Here is the connection between the pyramid's mystical and geometrical character. They are vitally, strictly linked." End quote. Her Bak scanned the desert level, where gigantic pyramids stood over a city of tombs. The Sphinx, witness from very ancient times, watched over the secret of the dead and living, pointing the one and the other to the orient of resurrection. The disciple tried to count the temples they had seen during their pilgrimage. He sighed, "I shall never remember them all, and we visited but few." The master gave voyage its true significance. Quote, "All existence is a voyage in the course of which the soul, carried in its corporal boat, is impregnated with consciousness as your eyes with the colours, your ears with the words of nature. Thus do migrating birds. Each makes its flight in response to the vital call of its own being. One seeks the marshes, another Ra's beams, a third follows the ripening of the grain. Each one's path is governed by Ra's course and by its own capacity for adaptation to changing conditions of land and climate. And on the journey, its consciousness reawakens, enriched with fresh experience." There is another image of a funeral barge, which I will send. "Thus, your soul is an immortal wanderer in the short courses of earth, the changes of the duat, the glorious reaches of heaven. It isn't the number of images perceived that counts, but the ineffable impressions that enrich your consciousness. Above all, the possibilities they awaken and bring out in you. Remember the migratory birds. Each is called by its desires and the aim of its existence. The aim determines the journey, but otherwise is the passive pilgrimage of a mortal in his Osirian passion, otherwise the conscious peregrination of Horus, who wins his mastership by subduing the animal forces one by one. Do not be held by the charm and variety of this riverine landscape. Seek a wider horizon. Plan your journey. It will have the scope of your desire." End quote. Her Bak on his return had the pleasure of finding Aub among the students of the inner temple. It surprised him, for naivety gave Aub's intelligence a childlike character that seemed ill-adapted to the arduous research that was imposed on the students. The sage took occasion to recall the teaching of the three masters on the day of the question. If you would be an adept of the wisdom, Her Bak, don't forget that the ways of Ma'at are identical as to aim but threefold as to means. Understanding may be awakened by knowledge of symbols and analogies, by knowledge of numbers, or by absolute surrender of me in total fusion with self. It is true that the three ways mingle, since awareness of one brings awareness of the others. Still, every seeker drawn by Ma'at must choose the way that suits his capacities. Aob's gift of impersonality and his altruism offer a disposition that the mystic finds acceptable. If he has the courage to acquire the consciousness of relative good and evil without losing his pure and simple love for the sole absolute good, he will attain wisdom by the simplest path, the way of fusion. What you say gives me great pleasure for Aob's sake, Her Bak replied. But can you explain what is meant by a sage? Quote, a sage is a man who is conscious, able to conceive the three ways in himself, able to love impersonally, to know what is without prejudice, to obey the laws of nature and to write down what he knows. There is no room for self-pity, my disciple. End quote.